Yo, what's going on, Serpa Squad? Tanner here. I'm back with another one. I've got a lot to share with you, so without any delay, let's get started. Back in the animal room once more. It's all really starting to take shape. Still definitely a work in progress. Because wait till you guys see this in a couple months. It's going to be a far cry now from what it will be then. And once we get it to a spot that I think is acceptable, I'll do a proper update and just show you how all the animals are doing, all that sort of thing. But before we get into the thick of this video, I want to bring you on over to the mini complete paludarium. I finally had a chance to upgrade the pump in there, so we have a little bit better flow on the waterfalls. And overall, it's doing pretty well. A little bit of acclimation going on, so we have some molding on the spider wood and that sort of thing, but everything's starting to even out. I think it's looking pretty good, but I just want to show you guys that I upgraded the pump on that. But let me bring you on over to this side of the animal room. If you remember, I was working on this stand the past week, and I finished that. What I've done since you last saw this was put a piece of wood on the back here to line up with the 2x3s on the front. I think it makes the piece look a little more cohesive and finished. I also sanded everything down first with 60 grit sandpaper, and then I worked my way up to 220 for those finer details. After that, I added 2 coats of stain. First was Minwax Golden Oak 210B, which brings out a lot of those warm yellow hues that, in my opinion, make for a really inviting piece of furniture. And that was topped off with Minwax Provincial 211, which, as the name suggests, brings out a more prestigious look. I then sealed everything up with 3 coats of Varathane triple thick polyurethane. It says you can get away with 1 coat, but I typically add 3 just to really help seal up the piece and get out that nice shine. And the end result is this awesome and unique looking piece of furniture. Not only does it look way better than what I had there previously, but it functions better and it matches everything else that I've built thus far because of the finishes. I'd say that most people who are setting up rooms like this would have just simply painted this piece of furniture black, and there are practical reasons for that. Obviously it takes way less time. You don't have to sand and stain and do all this different stuff. You just paint it black and it dries way quicker than everything I did for this one. And of course you'll cut back on reflection, so that's kind of nice. But in my opinion, when you have a piece of furniture like this and you stain it and finish it in this way, it acts as a sort of picture frame that showcases the work of art that you're making within an aquarium, for example. You just see the cool grains and the colors in the wood. It just, man, it really just makes that aquarium pop, in my opinion at least. Of course, we've got the new 16-gallon rimless aquarium on top, and we've got the 10-gallon Danio scape on the bottom. I gotta get another one of these to put down there, but before we do that, I've got to do a new scape in here and then get off the materials and fish from this one, move them up into that one, and I think it's gonna look really cool, again, as I said, with the wood showcasing the tanks. And give me some suggestions about the one on the bottom. I have sort of an idea of what I want to do, but I'm definitely open to suggestions, so let me know about that one. While we're talking about this tank down here, I currently have it stocked with 9 tinwini Danio. I also have some Amano shrimp and various snails. Again, they're going to be moving up into this one, but I wanted to stock it with a little bit more than just those Danios. So let me bring you on over to here, to my little quarantine setup. What I have here is a little Sterilite container with the latching lid and a built-in foam gasket. On the back I've clipped on a USB Nano air pump, which feeds through an air line, through a hole in the top, and down to a pre-cycled sponge filter. The nice thing about this setup is that I can take it on the go. If I'm ever going to a fish store that's far away or to a trade show and I intend on buying some fish, I can take this thing with me, have it set up in the hotel room, and then once it's time to leave, I can just hook the air pump up to a battery backup, and then it'll be fine on the drive home. Also, with the latching lid and the built-in gasket, it's not going to be sloshing water all over the place. What I do is fill these up with some clean water, which I treat with a water conditioner to remove any chlorine. Then I add some live bacteria, in this case Fritz Zyme, which was provided by our channel sponsor. After that, I can of course add the sponge filter. Since we put in a cycled sponge and some live bacteria, it's actually better to get this thing stocked with some sort of livestock to keep the cycle going, or if the live bacteria is just going to die off in no time. I figured many of you would appreciate a rundown on the quarantine setup that I'm running, but enough on that. Let's take a look in here and see what I got. What I have in here are 10 green Kubotai Rasbora. They're not a very common fish, and when you see them you probably should get them because they're not very expensive, but they're a really nice looking fish. They're just a solid green color, which is actually a similar green color to the Danios. They're small, they're peaceful, great little nano fish. My thought is that they will help add a lot of life to the setup without taking away from the Danios being the star of the tank. I also got 3 dwarf anchor catfish. These guys are super small, super cool, and I'm really excited to add them to the collection. My initial idea was to put them in the Danio scape with the Rasbora, but part of me thinks that maybe I should do a dedicated setup for them. I'm not really too sure, let me know what you think. These guys are going to have to spend just a few more weeks in quarantine, and after that we can get them into their new scape, which I plan to finish up next week. By the way, I have some leaf litter and plants in there just to make everybody feel more at home, but I want to bring you on over to the 180 and show you some cool stuff I got going on in there. In order for me to give you a proper look at what I wanted to show you in this, I gotta open it up, and that is a 2-hand job. And here it is, looking really nice. One of the things I like about this setup is that it's low to the ground, so I can sit here and everything is at eye level, and I can interact with it on a different way than I can a lot of my other setups where I'm either sitting in a chair or standing up. With this one, I can just sit here at my leisure and look into it. It's just a really interesting type of setup, intimate if you want to put it that way. But man, I'm liking this setup more and more every day. A lot of you ask me what my favorite one is here in the animal room, and even though this one doesn't have any animals in it, it's probably my favorite. And I think it's just a passion project, if you will, because I'm always adjusting things in here, always tweaking things, and although it doesn't have animals in it yet, it will someday. But I'm just really fine-tuning things, just making things exactly how I want, because I want this to be a very long-term setup. I don't want it to be like a lot of the ones that I show on here where I set it up for a year, change it, have it up for 2 years and change it. With this one, instead, I've just been altering it over, is it almost 3 years old now? Yeah, I think it's about 3 years old now, but over that time that it's been set up, I've just really been fine-tuning it and making it the way that I want it to look. What I wanted to show you is that 2 of my orchids are in bloom right now, or I should say 2 separate species. We have the Masdevallia nitophyca, which is a very prolific bloomer in here. I put it in maybe about a year ago, and it's bloomed just about every other month since I've put it in, so it's very prolific. But we have the Dryadella cristata here, and this is a first time bloom for it, or perhaps maybe the first time I've seen it. I don't know if it's bloomed previously to this, but I'm gonna have to imagine that it hasn't. And I was just doing my general maintenance in here the one night, misting, doing my thing, and I looked and there it was. That's one of the cool things about keeping these orchids in a setup like this. They're very unassuming. They don't really look too crazy, the leaves. There's nothing usually too crazy about them, unless we're talking about like the Joel orchid. Down here, it's got really nice leaves on it. These, they're kind of unassuming. They just do their thing. And then all of a sudden one night when you look in there, it's in full bloom. And it's just a really cool sight. And if you have the opportunity to get some little orchids like this, I definitely recommend it because they're pretty easy. Just keep that humidity up and they do their thing. As I'm sure many of you could have guessed, there's still just a little bit of work I have left to do with this one. I gotta take out the Calathea and the Dieffenbachia on here. They're just too big for the setup. I think that they look good, but they're starting to grow to the top of the setup, and I don't want to continually trim them, so I'm gonna put them in something bigger, and then we'll extend this hardscape here. So I have this big piece of cork bark, get some smaller branchy pieces to go over towards the left of the setup. I think it will just kind of make it look a little bit cooler, and I can open this up a little bit but also fill in the canopy more, so I think it will just add to the setup. I also have some more work to do on the foreground here, just a little bit, because I think the right side looks pretty good. Just a little bit on the left to do, and I have to put in the automatic misting system, which I've been putting off for different reasons. I'll explain more on that in a different video. And then I think I may adjust the lighting as well, so get some different lights in here. But other than that, there's not much left to do. And then after I do all of that, we should be able to get the frogs. So I'd say give it 2 more months or so, and we should be good to go on this one. As I was filming some B-roll, I noticed something else that was really cool. We got some mushrooms sprouting up right now. And what we have here is the fruit of the mushroom, so the actual mushroom structure, the mycelium, that's all underground or in the trees, wherever it may be growing. And what we're seeing here is the byproduct of that. And that's why you only see these sprout up for a day or two, where they be eaten by the springtails or the isopods, or they just go away on their own. They never last for very long, but that's pretty cool. And one of the reasons why I love this hobby so much, there's always something new to see, always something interesting to see. So one day you may have flowers in bloom, other days you may have mushrooms, or if you're lucky, you got them both going on at once. So it's really cool. And a lot of people ask me about mushrooms, and they're actually a sign of a healthy and thriving ecosystem. So when you see them in there, know that you did something right. And that's going to do it for this one. I really hope you all enjoyed seeing the mini update on the 180, as well as some of the progress I'm making on the projects over here. I got a lot more planned for these ones, as well as future projects, so if you want to see any of that, be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for future updates. As always, Serpa Squad, I thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care and peace.